The Cheating Death podcast explores topics that may not be suitable for all viewers. Listener discretion is advised. On today's episode of the Cheating Death podcast, we're going to provide you with some shortcuts if you are experiencing some difficulties obtaining or accessing physiological medical solutions. We're also going to give you some of our favorite coffees, and we're going to delve into a little bit of current events. Thank you for joining us today, and let's dive in as we prepare to cheat death. Guten Tag, meine Freunde, and a good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening to you, dear darlings, for whenever you choose to listen to this program. It is a most lovely fact that you are with us, choosing to fight, choosing to move forward, choosing to move ahead in our currently tumultuous, dystopian state of existence. And today, we're going to see if we can make that just a little bit easier for you. Now, if you are a Canadian listener and you have had some medical distress physiologically in the past couple of years, and it seems like you don't really know where to turn despite exhausting all of your options, despite contacting specialist after specialist, no fear ahead. You are not alone. There are ways that you are able to go about circumventing these particular obstacles of opportunity. Now, a lot of you are aware that the medical system provincially is such that there are not as many nurses, there are not as many family doctors, general practitioners, or even some specialists as there have been in years past, as the medical system here, both in how it compensates family doctors and how it provides compensation to nursing staff, is still exceptionally archaic, borderline destructive, and in a way to where doctors still struggle in some cases to make ends meet. So, therefore, a reduction in family doctors, overall provinces, you're left with very, very limited options. So, in a very succinct, itemized way, we're going to explain exactly how to go about circumventing that, or at least making a valiant attempt to go about finding yourself a solution when your medical providers, practitioners, and solution offerers have let you down. Now, your first step will be to log on to either google.ca, bing.com, yahoo.com, or whatever search engine that you are most happy, familiar, and consistent in using. At this point, look up Reconnect Ontario. This is a nonprofit affiliated company that will provide you with a caseworker that will assist you in managing your day-to-day work, your day-to-day files, as well as any medical situations that may arise. If you do not wish to have a secondary caseworker or someone by your side, that is completely acceptable, understandable, and ultimately, it is one of the types of situations we find ourselves in when we ask ourselves, should we have a secondary opinion? should we have ourselves someone outside of us that is going to give us an extra hand in the fight, a tag team partner at the WrestleMania of medical dystopia, if you will. Some people may prefer it, some people may not. So, if you don't wish to connect with the Reconnect Ontario services or any of the provincial subsidiaries that would be affiliated with any of the other provinces that would be providing you with a social worker, not a problem. Then you would proceed to stage 2. At this point, what you are going to want to do is search for Health Care Connect services. They will provide you with a toll-free number that will connect you to a team of administrators that will go based on your postal code and will go on the hunt for you to find you a family doctor. Now, the wait time for the acquiring of said professional may vary depending on your geographic location. For example, if you live in downtown Toronto, Ontario, it might take a little bit quicker, might take a little bit more efficient time than it would if you are out in Gabriel, Ontario, or Valcarron, Ontario, or if you're over in Kapuskasing, Muskoka, so on and so forth. There will be differences, there will be wait times, and there will be weeks, maybe sometimes months with next to no communication. But having Healthcare Connect in your corner to assist you in finding a family doctor will be your next step. Now, if you are still on the fence about going directly to family doctors to apply for and or look for representation or a professional, it's no problem. Specifically in Toronto, Ontario, there is a practitioner at 1980 St. Clair Avenue West in Toronto, Ontario, called Stockyards Medical. They currently have 6 family doctors that are accepting new patients, both solo and family. So, dear listener, if you are within an hour or two of Toronto and you would really, really like to have a family doctor and you're able to make the commute, whether it be from Hamilton, Niagara, London, Woodstock, any of the surrounding areas, Grimsby, Guelph, so on and so forth, by all means, give them a call. Their telephone number is area code 416-901-9880. They are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That would be your quickest and probably your most efficient route at acquiring yourself a family doctor if you're anywhere within the GTA. If you are in rural Ontario, the best suggestion is to identify this to Healthcare Connect, specify that there is a very limited access to resources within your area, and they may be able to expedite the assistance in finding you not only a family doctor services, but also other physiological services that you may require based on your level of injury, deterioration, current situation, or ideation. Now, for the remainder of your questions about what do I do if it takes a while to get a family doctor? What do I do in the meantime? Dear listener, it is a fairly complex but also a fairly casual method in which you would be able to utilize to handle any concern that you may have as it pertains to your medical situation. Fortunately, in the province of Ontario specifically, most walk-in clinics have now been given the authority and given the power to provide you with referrals to physiological specialists, psychiatric specialists, and a litany of different doctors that will be able to assist in providing you with imaging, examinations, testing, different questions about medication, and more. So, if you find yourself within the Greater Toronto Area and you need a walk-in doctor, they're virtually everywhere. If you find yourself in one of the more rural parts of Ontario, simply look it up on the internet before you go anywhere. Give them a quick call just to see what their criteria are, see exactly what they can and cannot do, and then have a trip, go grab yourself a coffee, and make make a moment for yourself to see exactly where you stand on the physiological chain and try to see exactly what you can do to get fixed. Remember, dear listener, the wait times for surgeries in this country have reached all-time highs of months to years. Some people in the neurosurgeon field waiting 2 years, 3 years for different types of examinations, procedures, and surgeries that would drastically improve their lives. But unfortunately, Canada is in such a horrible state of affairs that neither the provincial government nor the federal government are capable of turning course, circumventing it, or repairing it, as there is not one soul who is capable of putting forth any sort of viable change or consideration. When you address your physiological condition and when you know just a little bit of what you're dealing with, your first step, if you decide not to go down the family doctor route, is seek out that walk-in doctor, tell them everything that you need to tell them, ask for imaging, provide suggestions if you have them for referrals, as most doctors will be able to assist you a little bit more if you provide them with some doctors that will be able to make their jobs easier. And to be very blunt with you, some doctors have been practicing in this country for so long that they have reached a level of exhaustion. The doctors that have been practicing for 30 to 35 years and they work in a small little general practice, or they have a small little clinic, it becomes a little bit monotonous and a little bit tedious after one is desensitized to dealing with thousands of people over the years. So casually yet constructively, make your voice heard. Understand that sometimes you are going to feel like you are talking to a brick wall, especially when you are dealing with some aspects of the labyrinth of the medical system in Ontario and nationwide. You owe it to yourself to be relentless. You owe it to yourself to be the best version of you that you can possibly be. And this isn't possible without appropriate medical attention in some situations. So if you have an undiagnosed physiological condition that is providing you with a litany of distress issues, horrible daily life, by all means, fight as hard as you can. Because let us tell you from experience, dear listener, that dealing with various spinal conditions, nerve conditions, musculoskeletal deformities, and eventual paralysis that increases day by day, it becomes a comedy of errors. If any of you are familiar with Monty Python's Life of Brian, it is very, very similar. We have to take it on the chin. And you owe it to yourself to do whatever you possibly can to make sure that you're as strong for those around you as you possibly can be. Because the people around you want to see you smile. They want to hear you sing. They want to see your grace. They want to experience your elegance and you in your truest of true forms. And you can't do that if you're unhealthy. If you require any further assistance, or if there's any questions that you have, dear listener, as it pertains to finding any sort of medical assistance, whether it be psychiatric, physiological, family doctor related, or for any other generic purpose, by all means, feel free to email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to assist you in any way that we can. As we move on from our brief discussion about medical aspects of life, we're going to move into a little bit more of a fun area of life. And we here at the Cheating Death Podcast have been given a list of 5 delicious coffees that we think are going to absolutely caffeinate your cranium in the most delightful way. Now, a lot of you may be familiar with national chains. This list is going to be predominantly for those who currently reside in either the United States or Canada, as these 5 coffees are available at national chains and who provide the niche cafe here and there, whether it be in rural Ontario or just outside of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, is completely irrelevant. Not everyone's going to have immediate access to that. And we can all go into detail about where our favorite upside down caramel macchiato comes from and the specific idiosyncrasies of the notes and hints of the yumminess, of the deliciousness, of the delicacy of the beverage. But we here at the Cheating Death Podcast believe in providing as many people as possible a potential solution and or a new favorite drink. So, with that being said, we're going to start at number 5 and we're going to end with our feeling of what the best of the best drink is. Number 5, Dunkin' Donuts Large Iced Coffee. Yes, I know what you're thinking. As it pertains to this particular situation, Dunkin' Donuts, really? You're putting that on a top 5 list, Cleric? Why? Why would you put that on a top 5 list? Well, there's a very simple reason for it. Whenever you go to Dunkin' Donuts, doesn't matter whether it's off the turnpike in New Jersey or it doesn't matter whether it's below the city limits of Atlanta, doesn't matter if it's west of Tallahassee, doesn't matter if it's east of Las Vegas. You go, you get a large iced coffee, you know that the amount of sugar that's in that, you know that the amount of cream that they put in there, as well as the amount of ice that they put in there, it's dependable, it's reliable. You're driving, going cross country maybe, you want to grab yourself a nice giant beverage to stick in the cup holder so you can have something to sip on as your commute goes into streams of view and the horizon changes color from blue to gray to dark to black, back to blue. You need to have yourself something that's going to be dependable, reliable, somewhat tasty, and easily achievable and acquirable. This here is the Dunkin' Donuts Large Coffee. However, what you may want to do if you do not want to have a load of ice in your beverages, do what the vast majority of I'll have the non-dairy creamer people do, and that is just ask for less ice, light ice. And when you do so, be nice to the staff. Don't be a little douche canoe. You have any idea how hard it is to work in a coffee shop and to have to deal with hundreds of people a day and to have to serve up the same slop? It's rough. Be nice to them. Coming in at number 4, we have a very surprising addition to the list, but also a very underrated feature and or gem in most coffee places between Canada and the United States, and that is the Starbucks Chocolate Cream Cold Brew, specifically in a venti or a Trenta size if you are like the Cleric, being 67 kilograms and 180 centimeters. You kind of need all of the caffeine and all of the calories that you can get. So, providing yourself with a chocolate cream cold brew, standard recipe, completely fine, no customization is needed, unless you prefer caramel instead of vanilla syrup, in which case you will have to go into the customization field or ask your barista to customize it for you. The deliciousness and the decadence of the chocolate cream cold brew cannot be understated. A beverage that combines caramel or vanilla syrup, delicious 20-hour steeped Starbucks cold brew, and a lovely addition of chocolate espresso cold foam made using approximately 12 to 20 pumps of the Starbucks mocha sauce, and of course the lovely CO2 canisters to make sure that they get it just right. Now, this particular beverage is horrifically underappreciated and understated. It cannot be overstated how much of a balance this is between both the coffee profile and the chocolate profile. Most iced mochas, most lattes, has a tendency to be a little bit heavy on the sugar, a little bit heavy on the chocolate, so to speak, unless you modify it. But this provides a very nice, delicious, neutral balance. And for most chocolate observers, enthusiasts, and enjoyers, this is absolutely going to be one that you're going to want to keep on the itinerary for a while. Coming in at number 3, we have the Starbucks Iced Caramel Macchiato in a venti size. Light ice, extra caramel drizzle. Now, as most of you may be aware, the caramel macchiato has become synonymous with, do you have any, oat milk? or like almond milk or anything type people. And to which you would absolutely be 100% accurate in your assumption about these types of souls. However, the iced caramel macchiato cannot be understated and it cannot be duplicated. So identifying that there are now tons of coffee houses that do it. Dunkin' Donuts does them, Tim Hortons does them, and Starbucks does them, but they do absolutely make the best iced caramel macchiato. You combine vanilla syrup with your whole milk. Always get whole milk in your iced lattes. Never get 2%. Don't waste your time with that. Get whole milk. Stick with the whole milk. It will give you more development. Your muscles will look a little nicer. You'll feel a little better. And hey, it tastes a little bit better too. Combines the flavors of the syrup, the milk, an average of 3 shots of espresso in a venti, the caramel drizzle all over the sides for that extra little, life is great today feeling. And of course, the upside down presentation of the beverage makes for a very visually appealing and a very recognizable beverage that most have experienced at least once or twice in their lives. Tied for number 3, we have the Tim Hortons, Starbucks, and the Dunkin' Donuts iced pumpkin spice cold brew. The reason why all 3 are tied ultimately is because between the 3, the only difference is that the Starbucks pumpkin spice syrup has a lot more chemicals and is a lot more recognizable. Objectively, it is a very, 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 very long list of ingredients to read when you look at that good old bottle. Tim Hortons, surprisingly, has a very, very decent, equally balanced pumpkin spice cold brew. And Dunkin' Donuts, of course, it's very, very, very strong in the senses of tasting both like pumpkin and cinnamon, which are both excellent flavor profiles for the fall. So, knowing the staff here at the Cheating Death podcast and the Cleric of Chaos being the coffee enthusiast he is, neither of us could really decide which to put at number 3 and number 2, so we had to kind of throw all of them in there instead of doing the honorary mention trope. Coming in at number 2, you may be surprised to hear that it is a Tim Hortons beverage. Oh, it's very surprising. Oh, I'm not. How is that surprising, Cleric? You really go to Tim Hortons every day. I'm sure you live in Toronto, eh? Number 2, you sure it's not going to be number 1 there too, eh? And enough of the stereotypes there, dear listener. I look, totally get it. Totally understood. Even the staff here at the Cheating Death podcast may have been scratching their head a little bit, but hear me out. Tim Hortons ice mochas are absolutely out of this world. And when you take into consideration the customization options that you can use on the application, and the fact that Tim Hortons is the only national company where you can go, whether it be Canada or America, and you can get yourself chocolate milk instead of cream or instead of milk in your iced latte or your cold brew, it is an exceptional way to reduce the amount of sugar syrups or powdered sugar that you need in a beverage. You completely remove the need for the syrup and instead just have chocolate milk, and not only does it give you a little bit of protein, but it also kind of levels up the flavor a little. Specifically in an iced mocha, you obviously have your chocolate syrup, you obviously have your espresso shots, you have a little bit of ice, and your choice of dairy. Now, to make this the best possible beverage, both in terms of flavor as well as in terms of protein value, the best way to go about it is to acquire yourself a large iced mocha latte, less ice, with chocolate milk instead of cream, and no syrup. That way, you're getting just straight cold brew and chocolate milk. It's going to be about 85% cold brew, now about 80% cold brew, 10% chocolate milk, and then about 10% ice, depending on, how well your local Tim Hortons knows you and how many times you go and visit there, eh? It does depend. But the most consistent beverage that you can acquire there is the ice mocha with the chocolate. If you are not going for the standard brewed coffee, those are not going to be featured on this list for obvious reasons. They're easy to choose. They're not extremely creative to go with, and quite frankly, we feel that we would be disparaging your time if we were to go with a brewed coffee as being number 2 or number 1. So number 2, your ice mocha from Tim Hortons. Outstanding beverage. Get it in a large, no syrup, and replace the cream with chocolate milk. And you'll also notice that you feel a little bit less bloated. You feel a lot lighter after having a chocolate milk and a nice latte instead of cream, because cream does take up a lot of gastric space, and it does get a little bit gassy from time to time. So do what you can to try to circumvent that when you can, while also enjoying your favorite beverage. And we should probably provide some type of drum roll and or sound clip for our number 1 reveal, but given that this is a Canadian sponsored coffee list, we'll just go with the standard old how's it going, Here's your number 1. And of course, the number 1 best coffee, best deliciousness, the premier, the pinnacle in the staff's list. Are you ready? Can you handle it? Are you able to keep yourself contained? Because the number 1 selection is the Starbucks Salted Caramel Mocha Strato Frappuccino. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, probably one of the most decadent, delicious, and yet deviously dangerous beverages that one could ever offer to a consumer. Loaded with sugar, loaded with delicious and absolutely creamy salted caramel mocha notes and hints. The Salted Caramel Mocha Strato Frappuccino is absolutely a beverage that will get you thinking differently about how you consume your caffeine. Now, when you take into consideration the composition of the beverage, it is fairly similar to a regular Frappuccino. You know, you have your good old Frappuccino coffee base, and then you have the Frap roast that you add into there. They then provide you with whole milk as the standard to ensure that it is thick and with consistency. They then add a new Stratofrome that is made using their very, very delicious chocolate cream and their very delicious salted caramel formulas. And then they mix that in with the Frappuccino and blend it. About 15 to 20 seconds on. They throw on some caramel for you. They throw on some mocha on top. And they serve it to you in a lovely, deliciously awesome looking tall, grande, or venti cup. The one aspect that makes this Frappuccino the top of the top is indeed the fact that it is a strawless Frappuccino. You can just sip that thing while you're walking down the street. You don't need to bust out the paper straw. You don't need to take your time and waste your time with that. No, not at all. This treat is an absolute experience from the very first sip all the way until you are shedding a tear as you take your final one. Going forward in future episodes, we're going to go on future explorative lists, identifying some of the best and or favorite foods, beverages, events, and other areas in which you may want to hear. If there is a tier list or a list of any kind that you would like, by all means email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. And that'll just about do it for today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, episode 2. We want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time, spending your energy, and lending us your ears and your insight. If there is anything that you wish to see on the podcast or hear going forward, by all means, feel free to email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on twitter.com at WeAllCheatDeath, YouTube at WeAllCheatDeath, and you can follow our host, the Cleric of Chaos, at twitter.com/Cleric of Chaos, linktr.ee/Cleric of Chaos, and further merchandise, information, music, and more are available on each of these distributing websites. If you are experiencing domestic abuse, please contact the Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 911, 988, or your local medical facility that specializes in mental health. Remember, the strength of the warrior is not known until the size of the battle is revealed. You will succeed. You are beautiful. You are worth it. Stay and fight. We love you. We want to thank you for taking your time to listen to the Cheating Death Podcast today. The Cheating Death Podcast is brought to you by Chaos Realm Records, CR Deutschland, and Cleric of Chaos. If you have any suggestions or requests for any type of information or content you wish to be featured, please reach out to us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com or twitter.com/WeAllCheatDeath. Remember, your struggle does not define your soul. Resilience is your best friend, and we are going to be there with you every step of the way as you continue to defy the odds, and as we all live each day and continue to cheat death.